Maybe a little surprised that I had some Denver Broncos in there. That's just how much I thought of.
Bills did more winning than the Broncos, though. Yes, sir.
Yeah, right up till it mattered. Number 2 on my list. They are dressed in black and gold.
Hey,
they're Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, and Lynn
I knew
Swann.
this was going to happen.
The Pittsburgh Steelers. Now they won 4 Super Bowls from '74 to '79. They had 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. You can't, Renfro caught the ball. So what? So what? They won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. They have polluted the Hall of Fame with all kinds of talent. Was Bradshaw overrated? Yeah, probably. I thought Franco Harris was overrated. But you know what? At some point, you got to stop talking overrated. I mean, this was, and the thing I respected more than anything else was how little the names changed. Now, I mean, we're in an era of free agency now where you can just throw players out and bring players in just haphazardly, and if it works, it works. I like the old school days when you knew that Cowboys offensive line was together for a dozen years back in the day, and you knew who they were. You saw them every Sunday. Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Lynn Swann. Not only the names, not only the ability, all 3 in the Hall of Fame and racked up 4 Super Bowl rings together. Tough to get a whole lot better than that. They're number 2 on my list.
It is tough to get better than that, and that's why they're my number 1. Mm-hmm. And number 2 for me is I'm gonna stick with Arlington and go back to Irving. Pardon me, and I'm gonna go with the Dallas Cowboys, man. I mean, I'm sure that's got to be your number 1 because I haven't heard you name them. But I mean, let's face it, these guys. But you know what I loved about this group of guys? Troy, Michael, and Emmett all had differences at one point that we could actually see. I mean, on the sideline, there were times where Aikman and Irvin went at it. There were times that Irvin and Emmett went at it. And the one thing that I love about it, at the end of the day, John, they could care less who got the credit. That's why they're all Hall of Famers now. Because it was about winning Super Bowls. It was about getting to the point and finishing the mission. And I think when you're in a team sport, and especially when you're around superstars, and what better way to introduce a topic like this now that we know LeBron James, D. Wade, and Chris Bosh are now all in Miami. Those guys are a prime example on how you put your egos aside and say, you know what? Forget it, man. Let's just win. If we all win, we all win. It's really that simple. And so I think, you could go and look at the numbers, and I'm sure I won't take all the thunder because I know they're your number 1 as well. But, just some of the things that they did, that Dallas Cowboys dynasty, you could argue maybe we have not seen another dynasty like that with a trio, a dominant trio. And I know people are saying, well, no, definitely not the Patriots.
Well, you can argue we're not going to see one.
Maybe not ever. And that's one of the reasons why they're the best, in my opinion, when it comes to, I have to give it to the Pittsburgh Steelers because they won 4.
Yeah, but to have 3 guys that good, very few teams can afford 3 guys like that.
And I don't know how all of Bradshaw and Harris and Swann got in the Hall. Swann's not even in, is he? Swann in?
Yeah. Lynn Swann is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they all got in, but 2 of these guys were first ballot, and Michael Irvin had to wait a year. And I just think that shows the respect they have from the people that actually vote, but also their peers. These guys are Hall of Famers, and not only that, but their legacy that they created for the Dallas Cowboys, the 2010 Cowboys, John, are still trying to catch them.
All right, so yeah, they are my number 1. So you and I flip-flop the number 2 and the number 1. You know what's amazing to me? So number 2 for me was the Steelers, and number 1 was the Cowboys. For you, the Cowboys were 2 and Steelers were 1.
Yep.
What's amazing to me when I think about, because I agree with you 100%, as different as they all were, and they were. Troy, Emmett, and Michael were very different.
Yeah.
If you covered them, if you were at training camp, they handled their business differently, etc. The one thing they had in common was leadership. That competitive fire. They were all leaders, by example. They were the last ones coming off the field. Nobody jetted into they all had something to say to the media because they wanted it said a certain way. And they set the tone for the rest of the team through the media, because those two-a-days, with TV reports and radio reports, you could hear, when things weren't going very well, you could hear it, and the message would be sent through the media to that we're not good enough. And I remember the commonality when Jimmy Johnson was gone. Because I think they all realized that Jimmy Johnson was the guy that was pushing those buttons and that was driving it. And they responded to that.
And keeping their egos in check, man.
Yeah, they responded to that. I can remember Troy Aikman just being beside himself with the notion that Barry Switzer could come in here and lead this team. A man he played for at Oklahoma.
Yep. Before Troy.
And he knew. I don't even know how that would have happened if Troy somehow would have stayed there for 4. I don't see how that could have worked. Troy, with the personality that Troy has, And the personality that Barry Switzer
boy.
displayed, I don't know how he is inside. I don't know him that well, but
we know enough
in a casual setting. I don't know how that would have worked. To be honest with you, Troy Aikman may never have been Troy Aikman for all we know.
That's a good point.
And
Mac Brown might have never been at Texas.
But the reaction that Troy had, Michael Irvin throwing trash cans around the locker room. I can still remember the video of that.
I love it.
You know,
I love it.
It's amazing.
And some of that was hype. I mean, we all know Irvin loves attention, but I think also it's, it was a part of, Michael Irvin was called upon to do that. It was interesting listening to you when you talk about covering them at St. Edwards and how vocal he was and the things that he would do during practice and the way he would challenge his teammates. It takes a certain person and it takes a certain leader, as you mentioned, because I agree with you. They were all leaders, and that is difficult to find. But they were leaders on a team. It wasn't like, okay, I'm an individual, look at me. They knew where they had to lead. They knew their responsibilities and their duties. And very rare was the occasion that you saw them not step up to the plate and take full responsibility. And that's why they won so much. And that's why people are still trying to chase their legacy. And that's why Emmitt Smith will be the last one this year to be inducted and finally get into the Hall of Fame, because they were, in my opinion, they were the best if you look at it as far as what they did. But I had to go with the Steelers only because of 4 Super Bowls. I don't know if that'll ever be duplicated.
No. It won't. I don't think so. I don't think it can be.
That's tough.
The rules are structured so much so now that, they don't want that to happen.
The parity in the game. I agree.
No, they don't want it to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Despite what we think, I don't think it's good for... Now, it might work in some sports. It's not going to be any good for the NFL. Too many fans all across this country. You got to have your team taste some victory. You can't have one team dominate like that.
I feel you.
Even if it is the team I root for, which is the Cowboys. And it should have been 4 straight.
San Fran, darn it.
It should have been 4 straight. And you go back to the Cowboys, late 70s, early 80s. That should have been 5 straight Super Bowl appearances. I'm not going to be that arrogant and say they could have won 5 straight. Some awfully good teams. But they could have represented the NFC 5 straight years.
Wow.
No
that's
question.
Impressive.
Danny White.
There you go.
All right. Quarterback is what we see on the Cowboys rundown. That'll be up on the website here momentarily. Again, you got to pick one quarterback. It's hard, but you got to pick one. And remember, we're looking for the next sports radio star.